Hi, welcome to Mindset, the Global Frame. And I'm Femi, and with me is Madam Fey. And before we start with the new episode, we'd like to say please do subscribe. It costs you nothing. Just click, support the channel, you know what I'm saying? And we'd like for you to be one of our first 100 subscribers. All right, Madam Fey, come on in.
Absolutely, Femi, and welcome everyone. We're thrilled to have you here. So, today we're diving right into the latest drama from across the pond, the UK political meltdown, and more importantly, what that means not just for Europe, but also for Africa and the broader global stage. So, let's get started and break it all down.
As we know, political crises rarely remain domestic in today's interconnected world. When the United Kingdom, a nuclear power, a financial hub, a pillar of Western democracy, begins to unravel politically, the world pays attention. The current crisis gripping the UK is more than political drama. It's a test of institutions, a mirror of global democratic fatigue, and a warning of what happens when nations stop listening to the people, to the citizens. What triggered the crisis? Cabinet resignations, economical pressure, public distrust, immigration tensions, deep political fragmentations. Welcome to Mindset, the Global Frame. Madam Fay, have you say?
Absolutely, Femi, and you're spot on. This is more than just local turmoil. It's really a signal that even the most established democracies can hit a rough patch. And when they do, it sends ripples far beyond their orders. So, we're going to unpack how this UK crisis might influence not just Europe, but also places like Africa, where economic ties and political inspiration often link back to former colonial powers. It's definitely a global story. So, let's dive in.
While Europe watches nervously, I'm sure, like when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. So we can pretty much figure that out. EU is now fearing economical spillovers. France and Germany concerned about weakening regional unity. The power structure is broken down. The threat of Russia, possibility of renewed political extremism. Madam Faye, I want you to break this down with your insights as to what's really been going on. Maybe bring up a couple of issues and speak on this.
Absolutely, Femi. So let's break it down a bit. What we're seeing is that the UK's political instability isn't just a local headache, it's a regional and even global concern. For the EU, any sign of fragmentation in a major player like the UK can create economic uncertainty. France and Germany are naturally worried about regional stability, especially with the backdrop of issues like the ongoing tension with Russia. And of course, there's always the fear that political chaos can open the door to more extreme movements gaining traction. So it's a lot to watch, and it's definitely not just a UK story, it's a global one.
Is there any specific issues you can pull up based on your research that we can maybe touch on for a couple of minutes that are currently going on in regards to this topic?
Absolutely, Femi. One key issue we can touch on is the economic ripple effect. For example, with the UK facing political uncertainty, there's concern about how that affects the stability of the British pound and trade relationships. That has a knock on effect for European economies that are closely tied to the UK market. Another angle is the impact on African countries that have historic and economic ties to the UK. If the UK's political woes lead to policy shifts or changes in trade agreements, that can affect African economies as well. So these are definitely threads we can pull on to give our audience a deeper understanding of the global stakes.
Is there what are the issues in regards to Brexit right now? What's the situation? What are they contemplating, if I may ask?
Sure, Femi. The ongoing ripple from Brexit is definitely still a factor. Right now, one of the big issues is how the UK is navigating its post Brexit trade arrangements, both with the EU and other global partners. There's a lot of debate about regulatory alignment, like whether the UK should stick closely to EU standards or diverge more dramatically, which could affect trade fluidity. And there's still ongoing discussions about the Northern Ireland Chronicle and how to manage that border situation in a way that's politically and economically stable. So Brexit's still very much an evolving piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, global implications. UK's role in NATO as we know it, trade disruptions, confidence in the Western democracy is just a mess, as to say the least, to say the least. Anyway, effects of on global markets, just like you mentioned. Africa's stakes, the perspective, African diaspora heavily affected, visa policy changes. Every immigration is a major thing across the globe. Trade and remittances, obviously, UK soft power influence shrinking drastically. Opportunities for countries around the world, Nigeria, to negotiate new bilateral deals. Come on, Madam Fay, give us a breakdown on this.
Absolutely, Femi. So let's break that down a bit. The UK's role in NATO and as a key player in Western alliances does mean that any political upheaval can create uncertainty about collective defense strategies. And as you mentioned, trade disruptions are a big deal, not just for Europe, but for global markets that rely on stability in major economies. For Africa, there's a lot at stake as well. The African diaspora in the UK is significant, and any changes in visa policies or immigration rules can have a big impact on families and communities. Plus, there's a question of trade and remittances. If the UK's economy wobbles, that can affect the flow of money and trade opportunities back to African countries. And finally, there's a bit of an opportunity here. As the UK navigates its new post Brexit landscape, countries like Nigeria might find openings to negotiate new bilateral deals and strengthen economic ties. So it's a complex picture, but definitely a moment of both challenge and potential.
Perfect. I'm going to remind the viewers, please do subscribe. We're asking for nothing but something that you can freely do just to support. And do join in on all the podcast and live streaming we're doing. Bringing this to a close. When old democracies shake, new powers rise. The question is, who's going to step in when trust collapses? This is the episode for today. Join us for the next episode, which is going to be a little bit tied to this. BRICS Rising, the new global power block. Madam Fay, take us out.
Absolutely, Femi, and well said. So, as we wrap up today, just remember everyone, when the old order trembles, there's always a new chapter waiting to unfold. And we're going to dive into that in our next episode, exploring the rise of BRICS and what that means for the global balance of power. So, thank you for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time on Mindset the Global Frame.